Hello, everyone. This is Alex Chandler, bringing you a detailed and comprehensive analysis of a complex and highly significant geopolitical issue. Today, we turn our attention to NATO's defense buildup against Russia and its broader implications for global security. Stay tuned as we explore the strategic maneuvers, economic repercussions, and the intricate web of international relations that shape this ongoing conflict. NATO's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has recently made a compelling case for the West to impose consequences on China due to its support of Russia's war efforts in Ukraine. Stoltenberg highlighted that China has provided critical technology to Russia, significantly prolonging the conflict. He noted that a substantial portion of Russian microelectronics, essential for military applications, originates from China. This duality in China's stance, where Beijing asserts a desire to maintain good relations with the West while simultaneously supporting Russia's war efforts, presents a complex challenge. China's involvement includes selling machine parts, microelectronics, and other technologies used to produce Russian military equipment. Stoltenberg emphasized that such actions are unsustainable and called for allies to impose a cost on China unless it changes its course. China's support for Russia has broader implications, impacting the dynamics of the Ukraine conflict and testing the already fragile U.S.-China relations. Despite China's claims of neutrality and calls for peace, its substantial trade and technological support for Russia have been pivotal in sustaining Russia's military capabilities amid Western sanctions. This support includes selling machine parts, microelectronics, and other technologies used to produce Russian military equipment. Stoltenberg stressed that such actions are unsustainable and called for allies to impose a cost on China unless it changes its course. This involvement has broader implications, as it not only impacts the dynamics of the Ukraine conflict, but also tests the already fragile U.S.-China relations. Despite China's claims of neutrality and calls for peace, its substantial trade and technological support for Russia have been pivotal in sustaining Russia's military capabilities amid Western sanctions. China's position on the Ukraine conflict, characterized by its strategic ambiguity and support for Russia, has led to several economic repercussions. These impacts span various sectors, from trade and investment to international relations and domestic economic stability. China faces the threat of secondary sanctions from Western countries, which could significantly impact its trade and investment activities. These sanctions could disrupt China's ambitions for technological advancement and affect its Belt and Road Initiative (BRI) projects, particularly in regions close to the conflict zone. The conflict has led to disruptions in global supply chains, affecting China's trade interests. Sanctions on Russia have forced China to navigate complex trade dynamics, including increased scrutiny and potential sanctions on Chinese firms accused of supporting Russia's war efforts. China has become a major importer of Russian oil and gas, benefiting from discounted prices due to Western sanctions on Russia. This energy partnership has deepened, with plans for new pipelines like the Power of Siberia 2. However, this dependence also exposes China to potential volatility and further sanctions. The war has driven up global energy prices, negatively impacting China's economy, which relies heavily on energy imports. This increase in prices complicates China's efforts to transition away from coal and meet its carbon reduction goals. European countries are reassessing their economic ties with China due to national security concerns and the perceived overdependence on Chinese goods. This reassessment could lead to reduced trade and investment flows between China and Europe. The conflict has created uncertainties for China's BRI projects, particularly those in West Asia, Central Asia, and Eastern Europe. While some opportunities may arise in regions less affected by the war, the overall impact on BRI investments is likely to be negative due to disrupted trade routes and increased geopolitical tensions. The war has contributed to rising production costs and inflation in China, as global supply chain disruptions have increased the prices of intermediary goods. This inflationary pressure affects consumer goods prices and overall economic stability. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has lowered its global economic growth forecast due to the war, which also impacts China's economic outlook. The growth of emerging markets and developing economies, including China, has been adjusted downward. China's support for Russia has led to increased scrutiny and potential reputational damage on the global stage. This scrutiny could hinder China's strategic ambitions and lead to further diplomatic isolation. The prolonged conflict has forced China to reconsider its military and strategic calculations, particularly regarding its ambitions in Taiwan. The war has exposed the risks and costs of military aggression, which could influence China's future actions. In summary, China's stance on the Ukraine conflict has led to significant economic repercussions, including potential secondary sanctions, trade disruptions, increased energy costs, strained international relations, and domestic economic challenges. These impacts highlight the complex and multifaceted nature of China's involvement in the conflict and its broader implications for the global economy. The reassessment of economic ties between European countries and China due to national security concerns and perceived overdependence on Chinese goods is indeed a significant trend that could lead to reduced trade and investment flows. This shift in perspective is driven by several factors. European leaders have recognized the risks associated with over-reliance on a single partner, especially in critical sectors. The experience with Russia's energy manipulation has heightened awareness of such vulnerabilities. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed weaknesses in global supply chains, particularly in essential goods and critical raw materials. China's dominance in these areas has become a concern for European policymakers. Europe is heavily reliant on China for key components in green technologies, such as lithium-ion batteries and rare earth elements. This dependence is seen as a potential threat to Europe's energy transition and technological autonomy. China's stance on geopolitical issues, including its tacit support for Russia's actions in Ukraine, has strained relations with many European countries. The EU is developing new policies to address these concerns, including a proposed economic security strategy and the Critical Raw Materials Act. The process of reducing dependencies is complex and faces several challenges. De-risking or decoupling from China could be economically costly for Europe. China remains a major trading partner and source of imports for the EU. In many sectors, particularly in raw materials and green technologies, finding alternative suppliers or developing domestic capabilities is challenging and time-consuming. There are differing views within the EU on how to approach relations with China. Some countries, like Germany, have significant economic ties with China and are more cautious about drastic changes. Reducing ties with China could potentially impact Europe's global competitiveness, especially if other regions maintain closer economic relations with China. Aggressive de-risking measures could provoke retaliatory actions from China, potentially harming European businesses operating in or exporting to China. The EU's approach is generally described as de-risking rather than complete decoupling. This involves diversifying supply chains, developing strategic autonomy in critical sectors, and managing dependencies rather than eliminating them entirely. The EU is pursuing several strategies, developing new partnerships with other countries for critical raw materials and technologies, investing in domestic capabilities and research in strategic sectors, implementing new regulatory tools to screen investments and protect sensitive technologies, encouraging European companies to diversify their supply chains and reduce over-reliance on single sources. While these efforts are likely to lead to some reduction in trade and investment flows between Europe and China, the process is expected to be gradual and selective rather than abrupt and comprehensive. The goal is to create a more balanced and resilient economic relationship while maintaining beneficial trade ties where possible. This has been an in-depth exploration of the multifaceted challenges and strategic responses shaping NATO's defense buildup against Russia and the broader implications for global security. I'm Alex Chandler, and thank you for joining me on this comprehensive journey through one of today's most critical geopolitical issues. Stay informed and stay engaged as we continue to navigate these complex international landscapes together. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.